As a young boy in school, Lawrence of Arabia kind of made you dream. And then as I started my career in Tunisia, I was on the set of Star Wars, 1976, and I was sent this book called Black Thirst. And I remember I said, this is a movie that should be made. And in fact, I wanted to make it immediately at the beginning of my career. I found most of the money with Paramount Pictures then, big studio, and I then had another director. They told me, we're fine, we can finance 50% of the movie, but you need to find some money from the world this movie is about. And there was no media in the Arab world, and it was not the time for this kind of movie, and I just hanged on to this movie all these years. One, because I loved it, and two, so afraid that somebody else would do it. And once I was pregnant with this movie, it was a necessity that one day I will do this movie, and that's what happened. First of all, I needed a director that understood the lines of respect that we needed to have in how to deal with the Arab world. I did not want a Hollywood interpretation of the Arab world. I wanted to be a Hollywood quality movie of scope, action, romance, but authenticity.
I met with Tarak when he was a student almost, a very young man. I remember in the office of Claude Berry, who was a mythical producer, and he introduced me this very elegant young man, speaking wonderful English and French and Italian. Since those very early moments, we always had a very courteous relationship with the desire of working together.
Jean-Jacques is a traveler, he's like an anthropologist in cinema. And I said, look, Jean-Jacques, I have a book which I really love. Maybe you will too.
What I absolutely loved, it's a great story of a young man, a young prince who's split between his two fathers, the one who was his real father and the one who educated him, on the backdrop of the discovery of oil. And I found it very universal, set in the past, but yet very contemporary, as the events showed us.
The film is about what happened 80 years ago in the Arabian Gulf, when these tribes, who were not kingdoms yet, were faced with the opportunity that oil was going to change their world, their culture, their habits, their economy, their religion maybe. And how do you deal with that?
Get ready to be rich.
Rich.
Seriously rich.
When you say seriously rich, Mr. Tharkatil, how rich?
Well, Your Majesty, one good well can produce 100,000 barrels of oil a day at $1 a barrel, 365 days of the year.
I'll be richer than the King of England.
King of England, what's he got? Some green fields and a hatful of rain.
For years I felt that this world was poorly depicted on movies from the West.
With me are two major companies, Warner Brothers and Universal, and that's something that I never expected would happen, that these big companies would be interested in a film that shows the Arab world in a positive way, in a true way, not fabricated, with its negative and its positive.
I am not the ruler of a country yet. I rule over a patchwork of tribes, all deeply conservative people.
You mean they don't like oil?
The only use the tribes ever had for oil is to put it on their camels, as a poultice when they had mange.
It would perhaps have been better if Your Majesty had waited with the exploitation of the Yellow Belt.
I should wait for the next cholera epidemic. The next woman to die in childbirth like my wife did. Our people need the wealth oil brings. Now.
Since the falling of the Twin Towers in New York in 2001, a big bipolarization of the world was taking place. And certain aspects of the Arab culture were lost in that process. And so it was important for me to do a movie that is, in one hand, as a Black Gold has, you know, an entertainment side, epic side, romantic, but at the same time allows you to have the possibility to reflect about, you know, what is happening in the world today, and just to show a little bit more of this culture that I consider a little bit mine.
We are making a movie for world audiences, certainly also for the Arab audiences, but primarily for the world audiences. So we needed to talk to them about a world they did not know, a world on which they had negative, not true opinions. So we needed to correct that without boring them, without educating them, but by entertaining them. So that is the challenge that we had all along.
I think it's a really refreshing story in lots of ways. I think it will be a historical insight for a lot of people. But also maybe it's interesting to see a story about the Middle East being told from the point of view of the indigenous people to that region. You know, I think we've had, you know, kind of fantastic Arab epics, you know, Arabian epics in the past. And they're, you know, some of those films are classic and they'll always stay classic. But I think it's really interesting and really timely to kind of have something where, you know, our main protagonists are actually Arabs.
I'm hoping the Arab Bedouins of the 30s will be as fascinating as the American Indian was in Dancing with Wolves.
My father always urged me to read the Quran. So I'm surprised that the venerable men of faith whom I see gathered here are unanimously calling for war when the Holy Book unequivocally condemns it.
Surah 2, Emir. Instruct us to defend ourselves against the infidels.
No. Surah 2 allow you to defend yourself against non-believers who seek your destruction. That's different.
Precisely. These foreign workers seek our destruction.
How? They came here to threaten you?
No, if the producer has something in mind that is different from what the director has in mind, it's terrible. Here, month after month, I could see that we want to make the same movie.
It wasn't about how much money we're going to make. It was, what do we want to achieve with this movie? And for me, that was the line of conduct. It's not a business.
Because you see, my son, everything you see in this room was won with either blood or love, never money. Because anything that can be bought has no real value.
When I started thinking in terms of casting, I had to make sure that it would reflect the population of the Arabic Peninsula, where you have all those influences from India, from the East, from Africa, from Ethiopia, Sudan, Somalia, Zanzibar from the South. So you have a great diversity of population.
The international cast element, I think, is incredibly, it's fascinating. And wonderful that you can work in an industry which can pull people from all over the world like that. There wasn't a challenge, really. We all had to find our own way of delivering the characters. Obviously, we all have different accents because we're from different places.
I've learned how to tell people to shut up in 4 different dialects of Arabic. French is a language that I learned at high school. I've never really had a chance to practice it properly. And on this set, I've been able to speak French every day, which has been amazing.
I love those casts because it creates a chemistry that has intensity. People like to surprise each other.
Jean-Jacques got an idea of what he wanted, and he wanted Taha's energy. And really what Jean-Jacques told me was that I had free reign to kind of do whatever I wanted in these auditions. So I felt a bit bad because I could basically say what I want and do whatever I want, and they had to react. And I felt like, oh man, what if I like mess up someone's flow and then they don't get the job because of me? So I don't know, I just kind of tried to like confuse everyone as much as possible. And when Taha was doing a scene with him, I'd just seen Un Prophet recently before the audition, and he came up and he said a line to me, and I just turned to him and I just went, said like, Ajib Habibi, Ajib, just that line in Un Prophet. And he just burst out laughing and he just couldn't carry on the scene. And I felt a bit bad, but then I thought, but then Jean-Jacques seemed to like it, and he was like, oh, actually, there's a good energy between you guys.
Peace be with you, brother.
And leprosy on you, brother. I thought I told you to take it easy. What in God's name are you doing?
Did you bring cold compresses?
Not as many as you're going to be needing. I did, however, bring a replacement for you in case you fall ill again. Don't think anyone will tell the difference.
The hero had to be a young Arab. We could not take an American actor to play a young Arab prince. And we found, thank God, Tahar Rahim as the proper lead for this picture.
Tahar is from Algeria, is deeply in that culture. I don't have to explain how to do a prayer, how to behave in front of an elderly. So that's very important. The main character is from this civilization.
What are you blinking at?
I always hope that on a clear day I'll see Salma.
It's too far.
You know, Saleh, something strange is happening.
What?
I'm beginning to forget what father looks like. Auda I can say a strange prince stuck between two sort of father. One is his father, for real, but he doesn't know him. And the other one is not his father, but the king who raised him in this golden prison. So he's always in between things, and I think he's a traumatized boy. He was traumatized by life, by this the fact that he was given to another king in the name of peace, to maintain the peace in this Arabic world, and he lost his mother when he was young. So he's traumatized, and he found the affection that he was looking for in books.
Here you go. Auda, I know you are very fond of books, aren't you? I hereby name you the kingdom's librarian. Come here. Is he happy? Yeah, he's happy. He's happy. Yeah, good.
And he creates a bubble around him, and he creates his own world to feel, to be able to live in this world, I think. So this is war. This is what the right epic's about.
Yes. But you know, the really frightening thing is how good you are at it.
He was virgin, and he's gonna lose it by experiencing or discovering the world and every people who lives in there.
And I see Tahar working now, and it reminds me a little bit of myself. He's filled with passion, and he's very radical in the way that he attacked the character. He is very precise in the decisions, the choices that he has made, where he's going to take the character, and nothing's going to bend him. He's, unstoppable.
It is said that every man has 3 tasks to accomplish in this world: to plant a palm tree, to dig a well, and to father a son. Have you already accomplished one of the 3? I shall permit you, with a last blessing, to start with the easiest of the 3.
For the human experience, that was amazing with the team, because the team was they were supporting me every day, Because when I came in this movie, I was very, very exhausted. And to carry a character like this and to go through such a shooting, I needed a lot of energy, and they gave it to me. They feed me with good energy.
Taha was an amazing guy to be around because as a French Algerian, as his Algerian roots really came to the surface while we were making this film, and he would be very respectful of me as his father. And it was amazing to see. There's a beautiful sequence where we washed together, and playing that sequence with no words was a real revelation. Taha is one of, I think, 6 or 7 children, and his respect for his parents is enormous. He showed me that same respect, and it's something that I suppose was an inkling or an opening into a world I've never been a part of.
I would love to take something from Mark Strong. His I don't know in English how to say that, but stillness, is that? He's calm. He's a very nice guy, and he always plays with you and never against you. All he wants is to make the scene better. He doesn't talk a lot, but when he says something, he chooses his word. That's very, very important for a young actor and for young men.
Saleh?
Actually, it's Auda, Father.
Auda.
Peace be with you.
Auda, of course. Forgive me, it's been too many years.
I was in Cannes and I had the good fortune to meet Tarak, and he gave me the script, and it's a wonderful read. And I spent an afternoon in the sunshine there reading this epic story and was completely transported and thought I would love to be involved with that. I also thought not only the kind of the epic backdrop, but the story of a young man having to come to terms with 2 fathers against the background of a very conflicted country was a page turner, as they say, and I just wanted to be involved.
One of my favorite Arab actors that I've seen in Ridley Scott movie, in Body of Lies, a man who was playing the Jordanian Secret Service officer was, as a matter of fact, an Englishman, Mark Strong, a remarkable actor.
I play Amar, a very traditional, religious character who is father of 2 young boys he's forced to hand over when they're very young to his arch rival, a very so-called forward-thinking, militaristic type character. But Amar is, he's very strong, very stern, and very convinced of his own rightness.
Saleh, never forget, you are my eldest son. You will inherit my throne. Defend the honor of our house. Auda. Tears are a waste of water.
His character is interesting in the sense that, yes, he is a traditional religious and could be a sort of one-note hardliner, if you like. But of course the script gives him the opportunity from the get-go of being somebody who's lost his wife and now somebody who's lost his sons. So that man has to deal with that kind of sorrow and pain in his life. So other than the first scene in which he's handing over his sons, from then on really you're dealing with a man learning about himself and learning about the world and with a sort of deep pain and learning about love, really.
We should be laughing at ourselves that we ever made war over this. This bit of sand. From now on, we'll keep it as a no man's land between us. Neither may claim it.
As God is my witness, I agree.
As God is our witness.
Scenes with Antonio were fascinating because I'd pretty much done a lot of my work before he then came on, and then we had to go back and do the first scene of the film. It was wonderful just seeing him get the feel of his costume and find this guy as we were doing it. And it gave me an opportunity to play off of that.
Antonio Banderas, who himself is fascinated with Arab culture and believes that he is of Arabic origin. He's from the south of Spain, and as we know, Spain has been, under Arab rule for many centuries.
Always having in my background, in my own history, as an Andalusian, certain contact with the Muslim world, and the Arab world. Being always very interested. For like now 12 years, I've been working in a possible project someday to just put on the screen about the life of the last king of Granada, Al-Andalus. You know that Muslims ruled Spain for 8 centuries. So it's part of my culture. It's part probably of my genes.
Tariq, my son, is there a greater curse than to be a poor king? I can't grow anything. I can't ship anything. I can't even trade anything because who would want to come to Omega? Truly, to be an Arab is to be a waiter at the banquet of the world.
It's a man that is the chief of a tribe in the middle of the desert, with a lot of privacy, with no money, with nothing, with illness going through his people, and he's a man that wants more for his people that he doesn't have the opportunity to give them. And suddenly he discovers, actually, that he got that capacity to do so with the discovering of oil in his land.
Father, here. Have I ever asked you for a favor?
All the time.
In a way, when I do that, I feel very privileged to be playing an Arab woman, to be going out there and talking about their stories, and to be representing them. I don't have to be Arab in order to represent them. I think I have to be a woman before I am an Arab.
Frida, she plays my daughter in the film. She's an extraordinary beautiful woman, and inside too, very smart, intelligent, with an incredible story, I mean, I didn't know that when she did Slumdog Millionaire, that was the first work that she ever did in front of the screen. What that tells you is that she's natural. She has been born for this.
I've had myself dressed as a Bedouin girl for you.
I'm not used to play with women, and I have to play maybe the most difficult things to play, love.
You don't like it?
I would never imagine that you would become so beautiful. And you need someone absolutely generous for that, and she is.
The reason why I picked up this character and enjoyed doing it was because Layla really stands for that want for modernity. The women in that culture really do not have that much freedom, and she is that every woman who's trying to be free and reaching out to wanting to be free. So I guess while she plays the daughter of Nasib, the love interest of Tahar Rahim's character, Prince Auda, she has her own story going on in her life, which is wanting to break free and wanting to be heard.
We got a couple of scenes, completely different. One of them is very soft, very sweet, in which you can see the love that father and daughter feel for each other in a very soft way, very calm. And the other one is the opposite. The other one is a rebel woman that is actually, confronting the father in a time that confronting a man like Nasib, a king, in the Arab world, 1930s, is not only just difficult, it probably was dangerous.
Now, say 3 times. I, Layla, daughter of Nasib, divorce Auda, son of Amar. Say it.
I refuse.
You refuse.
I had these beautiful garments that they got from vintage costume that they got in, and we could play around with it, throw in our own, I think in a way what was great on this film was it is very collaborative. So if I had an idea of how to put a belt or change the shoes or, dress the headgear in a certain way, Jean Jacquinot was always open to it. So that was a fun part. I played a princess, but a princess who dressed herself up.
Ay,
Forgive me, princess.
it's all right. Latifah, play something about love.
There was a certain body language that I had to adopt for this film. There had to be a grace to what I was doing. The way I walked, it had to command respect. So very interesting bits, but body language is very important when you do a film like this. I think Jean Jacquinot was my research, because I think he is the walking encyclopedia of the Arab world. He knows anything. And you say Yemen, and then he'll start from beginning to end about culture, about traditional clothes and food and habits and all of it. And so he was the dinners with him were the ones that helped me or trained me in order to deal with Layla.
Jean Jacquinot is a very meticulous man, very respectful of the subject that he was doing in the movie, and that gave me a tremendous amount of tranquility.
Jean-Jacques, he's not just a director, he's a philosopher academic. There's nothing he doesn't seem to know an answer to. His knowledge of the world that we were working in was vast. His affection for it and his understanding of it, I thought, was very deep. And we were in incredibly safe hands. I didn't feel for a moment that we were dealing with anything that he didn't have an answer to, and that's essentially what you want from a director. You want them to be a couple of pages ahead of the actors.
I just thought it's just this incredibly intellectual, charming, articulate guy. Like, he can speak English better than me, and it's probably his third language or something.
How Jean Jacquinot helped me was I wasn't really shown every scene that I was reacting to, but he would tell me the story behind the scene. And like a little kid listening to her father, narrate the story, I was reacting to that. So it's all about, is that what really happened? That kind of the eye thing happening. And it was a very unique kind of acting, I would say.
When I first decided to explore this world, I came there with images that have been make me dream for many years. They were, of course, inspired by the Orientalist kind of taste. I'm a great lover of painting and museums, so over the years, before discovering the world of Arabia, I was dreaming in front of those images. The strange thing is, what I discovered in Yemen was incredibly close to what the Orientalists had painted.
Obviously, not being an Arab myself, I had to find how I could put myself in those shoes. So there was a lot of pictorial references that I had in order to try and achieve the look of the guy. And I was helped enormously by source material that I was given to recreate the look of him.
Trying to be very honest with what you are doing is very important, very precise, without betraying actually the community that you are representing. From little details, very little things, when you are praying, the rituals that you use, all of those details, they have to be right there, perfect, to bigger aspects of the character and the context that is surrounding the whole entire project. I've done 85 movies, and I've been in big productions. Zorro, 13th Warriors, Evita, production with, a lot of production value. I have never, ever in my life been in a set like this. It's impressive. I think it's going to be a knockout in the movie. People are going to be asking when they get out of the theater, where is the city? We want to visit the city. It was unbelievably realistic, every little single detail of it. So it helps you enormously when you're doing a scene. If you are capable to be oblivious to the camera, everything else was real.
I don't like relying on CGI. I think that it has been used too much on sort of low-quality movies.
Black Gold is not supported by enormous amounts of CGI, and we're going to see lines of cameras that they don't exist, only the 3 first are real, and then the rest is just, no. We've been working with 400 cameras, with incredible amounts of extras and horses and real planes, and that's the way that he loved to do movies. Like he says, you know, there has been never in a movie since Lawrence of Arabia like this. He's searching for that. And God, I think he got it. Tarak is the old school producer. He's amazing. He's just a crazy man. And that's the beauty of it. We need more crazy people like that in the movies.
Very often on my set I had 500 camels, 500 camel riders, another 500 people on foot. You don't get the same result with CGI.
Green Lantern, I was in a big blue warehouse. There was nothing there apart from crew, cameras, cables. Everything is imagined. Ultimately, you're making a jigsaw with 2/3 of the pieces missing. That's what it felt like on Green Lantern. Black Gold is the diametric opposite. There were no missing pieces. It was all there. All you had to do was be true to your environment, the costume you were wearing, the environment that you were in, and the reality of the scenes you were playing with people.
Here in Qatar, this harshness of the desert, the wonderful wind, it may not be pleasant for people who just want to relax on the beach, but for us, it added a violence that was needed for the screenplay. So instead of using wind machines, I had sandstorms and all this given by nature that was difficult to shoot, but exciting on screen.
What Jean-Jacques and Tarak managed to create was the reality of that world. You are in the desert. There are hundreds of camels and horses. There are hundreds of extras dressed immaculately. So it's not very difficult to imagine yourself in that situation.
When you shoot a movie, especially in my position, I don't belong to the period where I live, but I belong to the period where my movie is set. So I was in the late 30s with people in wonderful costumes in the middle of a set that was quite magnificent. But it was a set. But for me, it was real. It was real life. It was real Arabia.
And to be able to ride a horse at the head of 100 horsemen, slowly coming across an oasis in the desert, was just amazing.
my friend Tarak said, you know what, I remember going to a place in Qatar. I was in an hotel, and right next door there were those big dunes going into the sea. So I went there and found the perfect location.
The sea! Look! The sea!
And what I loved in Qatar was this very arid desert. Was going all the way, boom, into the sea.
Don't drink from the sea! Don't drink the seawater! The salts will get into your blood and kill you! Don't drink the water!
It's always very exciting for a director, either to discover a young actor, or a new person, or to shoot in a place where no cameras has ever been. It's becoming rare.
Some people pay good money to go and find a beautiful location in the desert and ride a horse all day. So I was very lucky in that respect.
What is it you want?
I'm taking the yellow belt.
You can't. I gave my word.
It wasn't yours to give. The yellow belt doesn't belong to you.
Who does it belong to then, you?
It belongs to them.
Ah. And these are the men with whom you'll what? Build a new country?
First of all, of course, none of us knew that there would be a revolution in the world. Who predicted the Arab Revolution?
One day, I do remember, I was preparing a shot with Antonio Banderas and a large number of very important Tunisian actors. And my producer, Tarak, comes and says, you know what, I think we should cut a bit sooner today. He says, there's some movement. I said, all right, fine, let me finish this. He said, no, no, leave it here, it's fine. I'm saying, no, but I'm ready to shoot. He said, no, it's better to really stop now.
I was optimistic about my Tunisian citizens. I never thought Tunisia would really go into civil war, into chaos, because of how civilized, how educated these young women and men who were the people who made the revolution, the non-violent revolution. So maybe it's my optimism in human nature, but I was not blindly optimistic.
My producer says, no, we don't know the cameras later. So leave it as it is. So he said, we leave the lights, we leave everything. Yeah, leave everything. And you all go to the courtyard, and don't be afraid. There is one tank will be on the front of the cars. Another one will be at the back. Nobody should worry. It's perfectly quiet, and don't worry for the plume of smoke, or black smoke that you see.
And I saw how the extras, the actors, my crews, felt responsible to be protective of our foreign guests who loved them and the country so much. And the population of the villages around the studios in Hammamet, how they came to see me with sticks and said, Uncle Tarek, which is an Arab tradition to call somebody an uncle, this is our land, this is our studio, our families have lived for years with you, we are here to protect our wealth. That was something very touching that the crew saw.
I have my large crew all packed in 2 cars, and we're following those armored vehicles on a road where all along the road are people with sticks, with stones. But as a matter of fact, they're clapping at the army. So it's quite. You expect that people shout at the police. No, they were applauding the army, and then we started waving we were with the army, we were supposed to be like revolutionary heroes.
And that was a unique moment for the actors, for the crew. What was unique for the actors is that they blended in and became one family with the Tunisian actors. And the Tunisian actors and crews were very sensitive to see how much these international stars felt for our country, their country, Tunisia.
That was absolutely amazing because, you know, I felt something. I felt when everybody when a lot of people were scared and everything, which is absolutely natural. I was excited. I was scared and excited, and I just wanted to stay where I was because I felt something very rare. I felt that I was in the right place at the right moment.
We didn't know how the revolution was going to evolve. After all, you don't know, you can't know. And Tarak Ben Ammar decided to fly everyone back to Europe. He had to charter 6 or 7 small aircraft because there were not one aircraft left in the whole of Europe or Africa to get my unit back. But I decided to stay. Yeah, I wanted to play, you know, like the captain of a sinking ship. As a matter of fact, we were just a bunch of crazy people to stay. But among them was Frida Pinto. She said, "What's the problem? Demonstration? I'm from India, I'm used to it. What's the big deal?"
It's very unique and very rare that people get to witness the making of history. And I was there. And when I was asked to leave, you know, if I wanted to be safe and leave, and I'm like, there's no way I'm leaving. If something like this happened in India, you know, if there was a revolution that broke out for the good of the people, you know, like, for example, say, end all corruption happened in India, I would pretty much stick to it and see what was happening and be part of it if I could. So I know a lot of people who were jealous that I stayed back and like, oh, I wish I could be there. And I actually felt great about staying back and witnessing it firsthand. The curfews and, you know, the happiness when people realized that, you know, the government that they were so against was going to fall apart. So I guess it was a great feeling for me to be there.
What was very interesting is that some of the foreigners, instead of looking through the window, were listening to radios coming from Britain or France, where we were supposed to be in great danger, with very hostile people all around us. They were all smiling. We never heard anything against foreigners.
To be living the real life while making a film, which is suspended reality, was a very memorable experience, actually. While I was there, I was like, oh, how am I going to get out of there? You know, but when I left and from the outside, I was viewing what was happening in that country, it made me feel good about being part of it, even if it was just for like 5 or 6 days.
Living this situation, meanwhile we are doing a movie, it was just almost like a movie in itself. You can tell the story of what happened to us these days here, almost like a third movie that is on top of the movie that we were doing. It has been extraordinarily special. I will never forget that I have been in the middle of making history, and I wish the best to this country, because it's my intention to go back here someday and continue working with the people that I have met. I think they are totally prepared, totally ready for the future, and I would love to be part of that.
Pretending to show that, to play that, to make it, and it happens for real today in those countries.
Which tribe are you from?
Bani Khalid.
Ahmed,
Yes, Emir.
make sure she has an escort.
I am from the Janahi tribe.
I am Yafi. I am a Wamiri prisoner.
I am a
Aniza.
Turkish hostage.
Tell your people I was a hostage. And tell them that from now on the time of slaves and hostage taking is over.
I know the feeling.
I remember my crew was saying, is it not amazing that this is what we've been dealing with? That was some of the main theme of the screenplay are around those problems. The problem of aging kings that do not listen to the youth. the problem also of the injustice of the oil money, which is a big problem in the Arab world.
My brother's going to be a great modernizer. Of course, I'm going to be his Minister for Health and Education, maybe some others.
It's so apt for the film and for the moment. We're talking about a revolution in the film as well, in a way, a growth and a change, a shift from traditional thinking to a more modern thinking without compromising on ethics and morals and things like that. And there we're talking about a shift in government, a shift in who we want to see us ruling, ruling over us. So I think, in a way, it's so funny that the film and this were kind of running parallel, and the revolution were running parallel.
My brother. My brother. Promise me you'll overturn the chessboard.
For the very least, even if we don't compare it to the political situation of today, and it isn't, because it takes place 80 years ago, it will show that even then, young rulers were confronted with the issues of how you deal with your population. How do you give them well-being? How do you not end up becoming a dictator? How do you spread the wealth? And how do you deal with Islam, or those who think they know Islam better than you? And who knows Islam? Who is the owner of this great religion, and who can interpret it in which way? These are all the questions that we are still faced. Is oil today an advantage from these countries, for our populations? And is Islam today faced with the modern world and technology? How is it adapting? So I think there are some parallels in an entertaining way.
I like movies with several layers. Of course, the layer of entertainment, the level of emotion, and then the level of trying to understand something more. I love leaving the cinema thinking that I am a little more intelligent after the show than before.